Now let us take a look at the L under chapter 6 of this module. Now here it refers to the other key topics in relation to anti-money laundering and terrorism financing. Now this provides some guidance on the proliferation financing. All right. So MAS has issued the regulations under Section 28A of the MAS Act in order to discharge or facilitate the discharge of any obligation binding on Singapore by virtue of a United Nations Security Council regulation. This is the UNSCR, United Nations Security Council resolution, right? Now, this set of regulations apply to all financial institutions, including financial advisors regulated by MAS, and generally impose financial sanctions. I emphasize the two words, financial sanctions on designated persons. Now, very specifically, the UNSCR may designate certain individuals and entities involved in the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and its financing. Right, the WMS, weapons of mass destruction and its financing. The relevant information and full listings of persons designated by the UNSCRS can be found on the UN website. Now look below there, you can see the website. Alright, so this website under subscript number 8, right, is the website where you may want to refer to in order to find the information and the full listing of persons, okay, designated by the UN Security Council in regard to people who are involved in proliferation financing. And MAS has given effect to this United Nations resolution, that's called resolution, as listed in the FAF recommendations 21.2 to be relevant to combating proliferation financing. All right, by issuing regulations, right? Now, just to give you more meat, as it were, more content, as it were, on the regulations, you may want to refer again to the MAS website. I've alluded to this earlier as well. So these are sanctions and freezing of assets or persons. All right, in terms of Iran, under regulations 2007, right, freezing of assets or persons, Democratic Republic of Korea, regulation 2009, and the MAS sanctions against the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, again, regulations 2009, right? So a financial advisor should rely on the CDD measures, including screening measures. And I take note the two are different. So identification, verification, and then screening. All right. So identification, verification is 1, screening is 2. Under this particular notice, FA number 6, right, to detect and prevent proliferation financing activities and transactions. A financial advisor should also ensure compliance with legal instruments issued by the MAS relating to proliferation financing risks. An example is the MAS notice on the prohibition on the transaction with the Iranian government and with Iranian financial institutions. So there is a prohibition there. So one has to be careful then when you are dealing with people and entities from countries like Iran and North Korea and some of the other jurisdictions that the MAS or the UN Security Council regulations has put out. So similarly in 1.2 CDD and internal controls, and it says specifically that it's important to ensure that name screening by financial advisor as required under the notice is performed against, underline that one, latest UN listings as they are updated from time to time. So this is a CDD measure. Right, this is an internal control measure where financial advisors required to do so. All right, to do so meaning to put in place policies, procedures, and controls to continuously monitor the listings and take necessary follow-up action within a reasonable period of time as required under the applicable laws and regulations. Now, we have briefly touched on that earlier. So as soon as it is possible, all right? The minute you discover any of these persons whose names are being listed, either by the MAS or by the UN Security Council under its resolution. Okay, then 1.2.2 is quite self-explanatory, right? Financial employer, maybe just for good measure, should also have policies and procedures to detect attempts by its employees, officers, or representatives to circumvent, to go around. That's the meaning of circumvent, to go around the applicable laws and regulations under the United Nations Security Council resolution, and the MAS regulations. Okay, by omitting, deleting, or altering information in payment messages for the purposes of avoiding detection of that particular information by the financial advisor itself or other financial advisors involved in the payment process. Structuring transactions with the purpose of concealing or disguising or hiding the involvement of designated persons. So that is required of you in terms of the effort, right, to prevent proliferation financing. All right, 1.3 talks about the obligation of financial advisors to freeze without delay. And this I've also mentioned earlier. So I just want to move on quickly. Now, importantly is 1.4, where the notice provision under FA number 6 sets out the potential indicators of proliferation financing. Okay? So a financial advisor should develop indicators, all right, signs, right, that would alert it to customers and transactions, actual or potential or proposed, that are possibly associated with the proliferation financing related activities. And they give you some examples under A to F. All right, for example, the customer is vague and resistant to providing additional information when asked. Now, that's often a suspicious transaction, okay, where the client is vague and the client does not want to provide additional information. 2, the customer activity does not match its business profile. Right, this is again from your fact find. So what does the customer normally do and what does the customer want to do? Right? If there's a mismatch, then it is a suspicious transaction. Right? It can be suspicious transaction based on money laundering or terrorism financing, and in this regard, proliferation financing. Right? And as you know, proliferation financing has something to do with financing weapons of mass destruction. Right? So that's number B. Number C, the transaction involves designated persons. Now, designated persons means persons that are listed under the MAS website or under the United Nations Security Council resolution. Right? So those are the designated persons. And D, quite obviously, transaction involves higher risk countries or jurisdictions which are known to be involved in proliferation of weapons of mass destruction or proliferation financing activities. Right? Some of the countries are pretty well known. So once you have a customer or a transaction related to those jurisdictions, then be mindful, right, of money laundering or terrorism financing or proliferation financing. Then number D, transaction involves other financial institutions with known deficiencies, underline that, right? So financial institutions in higher risk countries, all right, that can be, that there may be public knowledge, right, or publicly known to be involved with criminal activities, to be known to be involved with terrorism financing or the production of mass weapons of destruction and such like activities. And then also where the AML CFT controls are lacking, right? So you need CDD measures to enable a financial advisor now to detect proliferation financing. Right? Then F says that the transactions involves possible shell companies. Right? Example, companies that do not have a high level of capitalization or display other shell company indicators. All right? You know it's a shell company, right? So a company that's been formed just to do certain activities and then they close shop very fast. Right? And the paid up capital is very low. All right? Now sometimes you can actually buy companies off the shelf, right? Even in Singapore and in Hong Kong. All right? So if you buy a shell company from an agency, then one has to be very careful in terms of the shell company being used by criminal organizations for money laundering, terrorism financing, or proliferation financing. Now, 1.51 talks about other sources of guidance. All right. Again, these particular guidelines says that the FATF has also provided guidance on measures to combat proliferation financing. And the financial advisor may wish to refer to the FATF website for additional information. And below there, they give you the useful link. All right. In terms of the International Organization of Securities Commission. All right, so go to the link there and you can find more guidance on the measures to combat proliferation financing. Now that covers almost the whole chapter on money laundering, prevention of money laundering, and countering the financing of terrorism. Now what leaves for me to go through with you very quickly is Appendix A. Right? Now Appendix A shows you some examples of the types of CDD information for different types of legal persons, right? So if you look at the left column there, it is customer type. And then on the right-hand column there, you see examples of CDD information. All right? Now, these are non-exclusive. The notice provision here and the guidelines provision here just give you some examples. All right? Cast your eye down under the legal person as a sole proprietorship. And the examples are there for you to take note of, okay? Like full registered name, right? Business address or principal place of business, purpose and intended nature of the business. This is the key as well. You must understand what the company is for. All right. If there's any mismatch in the company's business and the transactions with the financial advisor, this is a red flag. All right. So you need to be careful about that one. All right. So information about the purpose and the intended nature of the business relation with the financial advisor is key. All right. Whether these business relations, whether this transaction matched up with what the business of the sole proprietor is. Right. If there's a big mismatch or and so on, then cause of suspicion. The names of all natural persons who act on behalf of the sole proprietor, name of the sole proprietor, information about the source of funds. All right. So here looking at source of funds. All right, report on the customer's visit. Now, I emphasized that to you earlier. You may need to pay the customer a visit to better understand the place of business, the nature of the business, and for the financial advisor representative to gather more facts, additional facts, for the assessment of the financial advisor. The structure of the sole proprietor's business and records in any independent company register or evidence of business registration. Right? So this one, I believe you can get a copy of the ACRA search in Singapore, and those details should be available. Right? Except for the persons acting on behalf of the sole proprietor, that person can change over time. Then the second box there, partnership and incorporated companies. Again, you cast your eye down the page, right? Similar full name, etc. Now the additional thing is the fifth bullet point. Names of all connected persons, right? So here, there's another group of people the financial advisor may need to take a look at. The name of all connected parties, name of all beneficial owners. Now, this refers largely to the shareholders, particularly the substantial shareholders of the partnership. Then information about the source of funds, where the money is coming from to fund the business and to fund the operations. Similar report of the financial advisor's visit to the customer's place of business, where the financial advisor assessed it to be necessary. For good measure, I believe that the financial advisor representative should pay a visit to the company, where there's a sole proprietorship enterprise or a partnership enterprise. Okay. Now, in terms of the partnership and incorporated bodies, ownership and control, then records in any independent company registry. This one again, you can get it from the registry. Partnership deed, if any. Right, membership with any professional body. All right, that is also another source where you can actually verify the business of the partnership and the people running the partnership. And then any association the entity may have with other countries or jurisdictions. All right, like for example, the location of the entity's headquarters, operating facilities, branches, and subsidiaries. Okay, so that refers to the partnership and unincorporated bodies. Now then it comes to companies on the next page. All right, you cast your eye down the page. It is similar to the sole proprietorship and the partnership and the unincorporated companies. All right, look at the bullet points there is similar. All right, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 bullet point. Then being a company, you may want to take a look at the certificate of incumbency, certificate of good standing, and so on. All right, and board resolution. Since it's a company, right, you need a board resolution. Board resolution authorizing the opening of the customer's account with the financial advisor. All right, so you need a duly executed board resolution by the board of directors to open the account, because this is a company. All right, and here is because you have issue with the authority, right? Whether it's ostensible authority or whether it's actual or implied authority, that is another issue. But importantly is you must have the authority, all right, and under the board resolution for this company to open an account, and the persons who are authorized to conduct the business relation with the financial advisor. All right. So for companies, you need to be extra careful, right? In addition to what has been given to you as examples under the sole proprietorship and the partnership and unincorporated companies. Then quickly down the page, you see public sector bodies, government, state-owned companies, and supranational company other than the sovereign wealth funds, right? Again, the CDD information that is required are listed there. It is similar to companies, all right, because your public sectors and your state-owned companies are essentially incorporated entities, right? Now then, across the page there, you see clubs, societies, and charities, right? This is again similar. Now, if you look down the page there, you look at constitutional document. That's something which will relate to clubs, societies, and charities. Certificate of registration. All right. And clubs, societies, and charities may have committee or management committee or a board. All right. And therefore, a committee, a managing committee's resolution or board resolution authorizing the opening of the customer's account with the financial advisors is important. All right. And also the persons who are acting on behalf of these clubs, societies, and charities. All right. So similarly, then you look at customer type, trust, and other similar arrangements. As an example, foundations and trusts and fiducie, Truhan, and Fide Cosmiso. All right. So similar requirements in respect of the CDD information that's required. Right, cast your eye down the page. Near the bottom there you see trust deed. Right, because of the trust and similar legal arrangements. Names of settlors, trustees, beneficiaries, or any persons with the power over the disposition of any property that's a subject of the trust, and declaration of the trust, and then deed of retirement and appointment of trustees if these are applicable. All right. Now that covers the types of CDD requirements under this particular notice.